Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Bruce Smith along with Ken Graber from the Daviess County Museum. And we're going to do another recording concerning the museum's online PastPerfect site. And the address for that online site is shown, daviesscounty.pastperfectonline.com. Many of you probably saw our recording from a couple of weeks ago, which was our introduction to the museum's online site. Ken and I thought that first effort was fairly well received, so we thought it was worthwhile to do a second recording. Today is Wednesday, June the 4th, so if you didn't have an opportunity to see our previous recording about 2 weeks ago, you might want to go back and take a look at that recording before you view this second session. Again, the address for the museum's online site is daviesscounty.pastperfectonline.com. One of the feedbacks that we received from one of our viewers in our last recording was that while you're watching that recording, if you want, you can hit the pause button on your Facebook page, and that'll pause the recording. And if you want to go on your computer or your laptop or your iPhone and log in to the daviesscounty.pastperfectonline.com and experiment as you're watching the recording, you can do so. All right, we're back on our home page for the museum's online site. This is again daviesscounty.pastperfectonline.com, and this is what they call the landing page. And we thought we'd briefly review a little bit what we did a couple of weeks ago. Remember, we talked about how do you find that needle in the haystack? How do you find those one or two items that you're looking for in regard to your family research or your genealogy research out of the over 11,000 items that we've cataloged and uploaded from the museum's collection to this online site? And one of the simplest ways, again, is what we talked about last time, is the keyword search. And this is the way you type in either a word or words to find certain items. Remember, the last time we spent a lot of time talking about Nettie Baldwin. And so let's go ahead and type in Nettie's name again. And again, since we're typing in two words, remember, it's very, very important when you do a keyword search on a computer. When you've typed in more than one word, you need to use those quotation marks around the word phrase. Otherwise, if you don't use the quotation marks, the computer will look for each of the words that you type in, not as a phrase, but individually. So you'll get a lot more items than you want. So again, the last time when we did our recording, we spent a lot of time talking about Nettie Baldwin, so we've typed in her name again using quotation marks. We hit the search box. And the computer is going through the entire collection that's been cataloged, looking for that phrase, Nettie Baldwin. And again, it's looking through the entire collection, archives, photos, libraries, and objects. All right, so again, the computer looked through its entire collection for the phrase Nettie Baldwin. It found 12 results. So let's scroll down. And remember the picture we looked at the last time, but I'm going to show you a different picture of the Baldwin family. It's the same parlor scene, but the Baldwin family got a little more rambunctious. Different photograph. I'm going to enlarge the photograph by clicking it on with the mouse. And you get to see this delightful picture of the Baldwin family in their parlor. There's Mr. Baldwin, Mrs. Baldwin. Otto Baldwin is at the family organ, I believe, and the three Baldwin girls are with him, and Mr. Baldwin is playing his fiddle, and they've managed somehow to get the Baldwin family dog to sit up. They must have spent a great deal of time orchestrating this photograph. But let me show you what we've accomplished as a result of our last recording. We did get a feedback from one of our viewers, and I'm going to click on Nettie Baldwin. Remember, we spent a lot of time talking about Nettie the last time, one of the daughters of Elwood and Mary Baldwin. And one of our viewers, after watching the recording, shared with us a copy of Nettie's death certificate. So with that additional information we received from a generous viewer, we were able to better fill out Nettie's biographical information. And we now know her date of birth, which was 1891, the year that she passed away, 1950, and we also know that her middle initial was I. So all that additional information we have manually entered as a result of a very generous viewer sharing with us a copy of Nettie's death certificate. And the viewer reminded us that we need to include the mother's maiden name, which was Prosser, which we've done that. So to that viewer who shared with us that death certificate, we want to thank you very much for providing us with that additional information. And again, remind all the viewers as you work your way through the museum's online site, if you come across a name of a family or an individual or a person, and you have more additional information about that person or family, and you're willing to share that information with us, we would love to have it. So how do you share that information? Well, take a look at this entry for Nettie Baldwin, and up in the right-hand corner is a Send Us Feedback. And you can click that on, and you can send us information about additional information or comments that you might have about a particular entry that you're interested in. So again, if you'd like to send us a feedback, you can use the entry in the upper right-hand corner to send us an email, or you can scan a copy and copy a document and forward that back to us for to help us with our cataloging efforts. Also like to remind everybody that we do have in our online site what's called social media buttons. So if you find something on the site that you'd like to share with a friend or a genealogy colleague, you can use these buttons on the left-hand side to do that. For instance, here is the email address if you want to email and send a copy of a particular entry from PastPerfect Online to a friend. You can use the email social media button. Also, if you want to post one of our entries on your Facebook page and share that with a Facebook friend, you can do so with this social media button on the left-hand side. A couple of items about the site that we'd like to also point out that we didn't get a chance to do last time. Remember, PastPerfect, the computer system, arbitrarily divides the museum's collection into 4 separate categories: either archives, photos, libraries, or objects. So let's just click on photos and show you what we have currently in the museum's online site. And again, it's going to show you all of the photographs that we have cataloged to date from the Daviess County Museum's site or collection. So you can see as of today, June 4, we have cataloged 5,021 photographs. from the museum's collection. Now, this certainly isn't all of our photographs. These are the ones that we've cataloged and decided to upload. And again, you can scroll down this very, very long list of photographs, and at the bottom of the page you see we have 252 pages of photographs. So there's a great deal, a large number of photos that we have cataloged. And then going back to the top, you can click on Archives. Again, Archives under the PastPerfect system are essentially pieces of paper that have not been published in a book. And these can be diaries, letters, journal entries, business records, legal records, pieces of paper that have not been published in a book. And again, as you can see, we have cataloged and uploaded 4,868 archives or pieces of paper from our collection. And like the photographs, you can scroll down this very, very long list and get to the bottom of the page, and you see we have 244 pages. So that's a lot of items. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the feedback we got from viewers and questions they ask concerning how to use PastPerfect. One of the questions was, and let's just go ahead and click on this St. Rose Records as an illustration. And again, this is one of the archive records that we've cataloged, and one of the questions was, is there a way on PastPerfect online to zoom in the scanned image to make it larger? For instance, the label on this particular item is frankly difficult to read. And is there any way with PastPerfect Online to zoom in and make that print larger? We checked with the technical support at PastPerfect, and we found that unfortunately for the online PastPerfect site, they do not have a zoom function. However, Ken Graver, our computer guru here at the museum, says that what you can do is you can save this image or any image from any of the archival records and save that to your computer, and then on your own computer or laptop or device, you can use your zoom function to make the print larger and more legible. Now, one of the drawbacks is you will still have the watermark on the pages, so that might be a problem in looking at the print label and reading the text for a particular item. One of the things that we'd like to share with you in this recording, which is a recent document and record that we've been able to catalog and scan, is marriage records. And of course, anybody who does genealogy or family history research knows that legal marriage records are very important, what they call primary documents in any type of genealogical research. So let's go back into archives. And remember, archives are pieces of paper or documents that have not been published in a book, like in a library book. So we'll go into our library account, and we'll type in marriage records. And again, we put quotation marks around this, so the computer is going to look for the phrase marriage records in just archives, because we've just done this in archives. So we're not looking through the entire collection, we're just looking through archives. And what we're going to come up with is all of the pieces of paper or documents in the collection that have that phrase. So we found 10 items in the archives section of our collection that uses the phrase marriage records. And what I'd like to show off to you today are these items that we just recently cataloged. And they're Daviess County marriage records. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 separate volumes or ledgers that are actual records from the Daviess County Health Department for marriage records from 1923 up to and including 1950. And again, these can be very, very important records when you're doing genealogical research. What I'd like to do is just go ahead and show you one of these books, how they're organized and how you can use these records to assist you in your genealogical research. If you have a name of one of your relatives that you're looking for, a last name, and you have a sense that this relative was married in Daviess County in a certain period of time, then you can go to these marriage records in our collection, our online site, and look and see if you can find the marriage record for your relative or your family member. And again, let's review how we did that. We clicked on Archives at the landing page, and in the search box up at the top, we typed in marriage records with quotation marks, hit the search box, and we found these 10 results. Well, let's go ahead and look at one particular volume of these official records from the Daviess County Health Department, and we'll pick on this one volume, 1929 to 1937, and click that on. And what you'll find is what we've done, or in addition to cataloging this record, and again the catalog is a large ledger with 402 pages of handwritten entries of marriages in Daviess County from 1929 to 1937. So there's 402 pages of official marriage records of people who got married in Daviess County. Well, how do you find, again, that needle in a haystack? Now, first of all, I want to go back to the people field. We talked about that the last recording. Now, you'll see we have some names typed in the people field. I want to assure you that this is just a small fraction of the names that are listed in this particular book. The cataloger would not have had time to list all the names that are listed on those 402 pages. So how do you find your relative's name if you think they were married sometime between 1929 and 1937 in Daviess County? Well, let's look at the first page of this entry and how they entered these names is in the front part of each of these volumes is an alphabetized list of the names of the husbands. So as you can see, we just arbitrarily picked the C page in the index in the front. And the first gentleman that's listed is Harlan C. Chestnut. And you can see that his entry is on page 298. Again, they only list in the index the husband or the groom's names, not the wife's. And then the second gentleman that's listed in the index is Clyde Cannon. So if you know the last name of your relative, or the name of your relative, the husband or the groom's name, and you know approximately the year, you can find it by looking at the index. So once you've located your grandfather or your father or your uncle's or your great uncle's name in this marriage index, How do you then find the actual entry? Well, let's scroll down here and just arbitrarily pick a page where they actually made the entry. So here's a page on this book. Again, this is the 1937 marriage records books maintained by the Daviess County Health Department. And you can see that on each page they have 4 marriages listed. So on this particular, let's go down here and see if we can read these names. I really can't read that very well. So let's scroll over to the next page. And again, these are all handwritten entries, so they can be a bit of a challenge sometimes reading these records. All right. Here, on this page, we have up in the upper right-hand corner, this is page 26 of this volume from 1929 to 1937 in marriage records. And we have, you can see here, the full name of the groom is Amos Ragle, R-A-G-L-E. And notice all the amazing information you have about Mr. Ragle when he got married. You know that he lived in Elnor, Indiana, and I believe it says he was 71. He was white, and his place of birth was Regalsville, Indiana. They give his father's name, and I believe that's James. They've got abbreviated James, J-A-S. So you know that Mr. Ragle's father's name was James W. Ragle. And his mother, they've got his mother's name listed, Mary Woodruff. And Woodruff is her maiden or birth name. And I think it says here that this is the groom's second marriage, which is easy to understand since Mr. Ragle is 71 years old. And his bride, I believe that is Mary B. Eads. I believe that's Eads, E-A-D-S. And her maiden name, Mary's maiden name, was Mary B. Tomey, T-O-M-E-Y. And she also lives in Elnor, Indiana, and she's 64 years of age. So you also have the bride's father's name, which is John J. Tomey, and her mother's name, and her mother's maiden name, which is Edith Roach, R-O-A-C-H. And we know now from this record that this is Mary's third marriage. And they were, and that shows where they were married, the date of their marriage, and who the minister or the individual that married them. So on this one page, you receive a great deal of information about this particular couple, Mr. and Mrs. Amos Ragle. You learn not only when they were married and their names and addresses, but you also learn their parents' names and their mother's maiden name. So there's a great deal of information that you can glean from these marriage records when you're doing family or genealogy research. Let's skip over just to the next page. And we have here in the upper right-hand corner of page 27 of the same volume, and we have Raymond, it looks like William White. And he was marrying Sylvia, I think that's Hauser, H-A-U-S-E-R. Raymond was 22 years of age, and Sylvia was 20 years of age. So again, marriage records can be an extremely important genealogical research tool in your family history research. And going back to where we looked before, We have several volumes of these marriage records that we have recently cataloged. Larry Smoot, one of our volunteers here at the museum, have scanned all of these pages onto our online site. And again, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 volumes of these marriage records from 1923 to 1950. Again, there's a great deal of genealogical information that you can take a look at. So let's go back to that one volume that we looked at. We did enter a few names, not all the names from this volume. And again, let's review what we discussed. We went ahead and there's Mr. Bert O. Burris. We did put his name in the people field. So if you were to click on his name in the people field, and then we learned that Mr. Burris was the Daviess County Health Commissioner. The reason why his name's there because he signed all these records. Well, let's jump back and look at Clarence A. Cunningham. And there you see Mr. Cunningham. All we have about Mr. Cunningham in our catalog collection is the marriage record that he was married in Daviess County during this period of 1929 to 1937. Going back to the record, let's go back to Mr. Hauser. And again, we click on Mr. Hauser. Again, the only record we have from Mr. Hauser is William F. Hauser. But if again, as we've shown you, if you go into this record and find Mr. Hauser's name in the index, look him up on the page number, you're going to find a great deal of information about Mr. Hauser, the lady that he married, and their family background. So hopefully this additional information, these marriage records, will be helpful to you in your genealogy and family history research. Again, we would appreciate comments, suggestions, ideas about this recording or other matters that you would like to explore on PastPerfect Online and our Daviess County collection. Thank you for listening today, and hopefully you'll find this information helpful. Thank you.